All right, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, no
That's
echoes,
better.
right?
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Hey, excuse me, this is Todd Melanson.
Yes,
Can you guys hear me?
we can hear you, but we can't. Oh, there you are. Okay, I was going to say we can hear you, but we couldn't see you. But there you are. Okay.
I have to be very, very brief. I am on the site of a main break. So, so my guys are like really deep in the ground. So anyways,
Okay,
I just wanted to state in looking at the maps, I didn't know if you opened the meeting or not. I sent an email to Veronica and Nelson and stuff. But I got to go. So I just wanted to be on the record that looking at where the water supply land is, where potential wellhead protection land is, I oppose the transfer of this property to Fish and Game. If it is a detriment to the town because it does affect the ability of the water department to pull to set up and develop the land as a public water supply. It is designated, the abutting land is designated as public water supply, and that's actually under the control of the Board of Water Commissioners. So I just wanted to get on and say that. And I'll listen briefly if someone has something to say, but I need to get off and get back with my crew.
Okay, the fee does not transfer to Fish and Game. Only the CR, and the CR will be.
I cannot. I have talked to people that I know in water resource management on the public works on the public water supply land, and I cannot agree to the conservation restriction. I'm sorry.
Well, Anne, would you like to speak to this?
Nope.
Okay, I will just say that the conservation restriction, that piece of the property can be, if that is the case, it can be the bounds of the conservation restriction can exclude that piece of the property. It depends on how.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am adamantly opposed to it. It is a detriment to the town and its future development of a water supply. I cannot agree to it. And so my vote would be no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, I'm going to open the meeting now. So I don't know if that counts at all, but I'd like to open the meeting at 7:06 for the Conservation Restriction Committee for Squanicook Meadows. So could I have a roll call of all those present? And I will first note that Todd Melanson was on briefly prior to the start of the meeting to voice his opposition to the CR being put on at least the water piece of the property. He probably means all of it, but I don't know why that would be. I can see holding out the water piece of it, the part of the property that is water supply and designated as such. So there's probably a couple ways that could be done. So anyway, roll call vote of those present on the from the committee.
Selena Thomas, present.
Mike Potshead, present.
Emily, you need to unmute.
Emily Fine, present.
And Veronica Cal, present. And again, I'll note that Todd Melanson was here prior to the meeting, but he is no longer on the call. All right, I'm going to announce that the meeting is being recorded on Zoom. It will be uploaded to YouTube. Are there any other parties recording? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Are there any additions or deletions? I have no additions or deletions, but does anybody else have any additions or deletions to the agenda? All right, everybody should have received the minutes for the March 20th, 2025 meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes and then discuss?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So Selena made the motion and Michael seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes for March 20th?
My only discussion is my name is misspelled, but that's okay.
Wait, how do you spell your name? Is it S-A?
Salina.
Did I have E?
Yes.
And A? I had gone through.
Actually, you have it both ways in here or
Oh,
something.
really?
Yeah.
We will correct that.
It's okay.
I-N-A?
INA.
Okay. Any other comments on the minutes? All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, we need to have a roll call vote. So starting in the room with Selena.
Selena Thomas, yes.
Mike Potts said yes.
Veronica Kell, yes. And-
Emily Fine, yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, on March 20th, we talked about the history of this process. This committee, I will again say, is formed in order to put a CR on the property. And that was approved through the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen at the time. The TESA lease was written based on that with a 3-year, 3-year, and 3-year extension, and with the understanding that the organization would be expanding the fields and the area that is the soccer facility. And those plans came forward to the Board of Selectmen, was it January or so? It was after, I mean, it might have been December, January timeframe. I don't remember the exact date, because the town had to sign off on allowing the engineering because the town is the property owner. And so that was done, and the question was what happened to the CR, and consequently this committee came into being. So I had sent everybody the minutes of the meetings that I could find, and you could look at the recordings of all. I guess, are there any comments on that?
Well, I wasn't sure if I
Go ahead.
should have added this to the agenda or not, but with some trepidation that I might be opening a can of worms here. I'm wondering, I've been on the board relatively short time, steep learning curve, starting to get the hang of it, starting to see the big picture. And the more I thought about it, it seemed to me that the Conservation Commission's decision to go along with the CR 3.5 years ago, the commission is almost totally changed now in personnel. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to go back and see what the commission feels about it now. I can see some advantages of perhaps the commission holding the deed for the property.
So I went back through my, so on that, I went back through my notes because there were, and James, you were present at the meeting. There was one on November 14th, 2021 and September 21st. I think it was 2021 or 2022, might have been 2022.
It was November 10. The one that you gave us, one of them that you gave us.
Right, but there were other meetings. There were 2 other meetings that were held with NHESP. I think I have Misty Ann, Mike Jones, James Gates, Emily Fine, and me, October 14th.
That was when we walked the fields.
No, we were here.
We were here.
We were here. And then there was another one held on March 30th, the following year. So it must have been 2021.
I think it was when Emily was trying to do when you guys were trying to do the,
Conservation management.
yeah, the Japanese knotweed removal.
And the management, we took out the small trees.
Yep.
So yeah, it was to all plan that. And the discussion was also around the options for what could be done. And so the option went to the Conservation Commission, land transferred in fee to the Conservation Commission with a paragraph added to the deed, and this is from Mike Jones, to make it Article 97 land.
And I do recall that. And I have actually changed my opinion on that matter. Because I do recall that Conservation Commission really doesn't have an interest in, I don't want to say dealing with it, but holding the deed. But since then I have rethought a lot of it and seen what we can do with properties in town where we had them surveyed and bound and attempt to manage them better.
Excuse me, I have no idea who's speaking.
Go ahead and identify yourself. Could you come to the table, James, so that you will appear?
Oh, okay.
So that you will appear up here.
Hi. Christina. During that discussion, and it was again a different commission at the time, we and different administration in the town. We really didn't feel that we would be the best fit. Now, since then, we've had incidents where we've had dirt bikes on the property that I've been able to help mitigate relatively quickly. Other times, and I know there's other properties in town that are state-owned that are more difficult for the state to manage because of their lack of resources. All the environmental officers are spread thin, but I feel that it should go back to conservation for a discussion now that things are moving forward.
I think there were what did I do?
I think the line needs to mute.
All right, let's. On this one?
On your computer.
And Veronica, it's Kim Craven. I'm on Zoom at some point. If I could speak to this item as well.
I want to. Right now, nobody's going to speak. I'm not sure what happened.
Does my voice echo if I speak?
Okay, could we keep the audio open for the main computer and everyone else, unless you're speaking, everyone else muted? Thank you.
Okay, maybe.
Yes.
Are
Yes.
we echoing again?
No.
No. Okay, so anyway, what the notes I have are, if it's, we can either, it's an either or, and if it transfers, there has to be a deed language that makes it Article 97 land, a conservation and management plan put in place for it, let's see, formal gravel habitat, and there has to be enforceability. So, and at least as far as I know, at least 3 of you were on the Conservation Commission at that time.
Again, there was, I think, only 4 at the time. And
Right.
I have changed my opinion. So
Why? Why is it different now than it was then?
we've had those incidents where we've had people come in with wheeled vehicles and motorized vehicles that I don't think the state has the resources to enforce. And again, people change their minds every day. You learn different things. You have different experiences that change the way you look at things.
If I may ask, you mentioned, James, that you mitigated the legal off-road vehicles.
Well,
How did you mitigate it?
We're attempting to with signage, and if I receive a report, I'm able to respond right away. We've had people go down there on Saturdays during soccer games, and I'm the lucky one that gets the phone call.
And if I could, Veronica, I would like to speak.
I'd
As
like to have
part of
the committee talk first, and James is on the Conservation Commission. So I'll come back to you.
Okay. I'm on hold from school committee, so I wanted to speak and leave.
I'm wondering if I can talk to it also.
Yeah, I would like to hear from the committee. So.
Okay. It's my understanding, unfortunately, that this committee is made to develop the CR. So if a decision not to do a CR is to be made, I don't believe it's in our purview to do that. I do know that James has been a huge help to us in recent years. They recently put up signs to try to keep people off of the slopes. I know that when people have been using either bikes up and down the slopes or other vehicles, that James has gotten the police involved and gotten them to stop. My only concern is that the makeup of the Conservation Commission changes almost yearly, and it's made up of all volunteers. So I'm just concerned that in the long term, it might be better to have a CR, although I just don't know that it's in our purview to change what we were brought here to do. So that could be a problem.
I would agree with
Veronica,
that.
I know you don't want me to speak, which is
No,
typical,
that's
but
fine. Really?
it's relevant though, Veronica, so that you all can frame this. I entered a letter for you, the selectmen, the commission, recreation. I sent it to Todd. I sent it to James.
I haven't seen a letter.
Okay. And that's why I'm jumping on. So it is on behalf of my dad that he is writing with his deepest concern the current discussions to place the conservation restriction on Squanicook Meadows, Holly's Playground, the parcel that he donated on behalf of the family to the town of Townsend. And it was made in good faith that the town would maintain control of the property. At time, there was not a conservation restriction committee in place, and that his intent was to give it to the town. Given the Conservation Commission was and is a standing committee whose local knowledge and stewardship is trusted to balance the ecological preservation with community needs. They should be the one with responsibility. Any proposed transfer of oversight to an outside entity, included Mass Division of Fish and Wildlife, is not in keeping with the spirit of this donation. While I understand and appreciate the role of conservation restriction in protecting ecological value, I did not envision this parcel being removed from local jurisdiction or burdened by permanent restrictions that could limit the town's future flexibility in maintaining its resources. I'm especially concerned that such actions may discourage other landowners from considering similar gifts in the future. Local stewardship has always been a hallmark of conservation success in Townsend. We turn oversight to the influence of an outside agency. We undermine both community involvement and the very spirit of generosity that allows towns like ours to protect our open space. Respectfully urge the Select Board and Conservation Restriction Committee to reconsider the current direction and ensure the Conservation Commission is the oversight entity. Please explore the options that maintain the parcel under the care, custody, and control of the town of Townsend as originally intended, and with the Conservation Commission being oversight rather than transferring stewardship to a committee not elected by our community members that includes a state agency. Thank you for attention to this matter and your ongoing commitment to preserving Townsend's natural spaces in a way that honors the trust of its residents. So that's from my dad, and as one of the remaining kids in the family, and having my own personal opinions of the lack of maintenance and attention that the state has of some of its properties that it owns in town. Nothing against the folks in the room, that this was given to the town of Townsend and the care and trust of the Townsend residences and those elected, whether it be the boards of selectmen or the Conservation Commission, and it was to the town of Townsend. And you might remember that there was many discussions back in the time about the water, because originally the deed was going with the water rights remaining with the family, but we did turn the water rights over to the town as well. So if the town's changing its decision that you don't want the land, you can give it back to my dad.
The town still retains ownership of the property. I believe that's a misunderstanding of what conservation restriction is. The fee.
I understand, but you're giving control to an outside entity.
No, it's not control. It is, let me see how I can put this. It's not control. You work in concert with an agency when you have a conservation restriction to make sure that the values of the property are retained. There, in no way would I want the water rights to go away. It's an added layer to make sure that the property stays in the way that it is intended to be by the owner of the property. And the ownership does not change.
The oversight does. The oversight is influenced by the state and not by the town to which it was given. And the intent.
No, I see a member with a hand up. So Emily, go ahead.
The conservation restriction, what we would do is we would write down just in the protected area what activities are allowed and what activities are not allowed. And this is, and that would be something that we, the committee, we of the town of Townsend would be deciding. And all that the holder of the conservation restriction does is make sure that those stipulations that we decide about, not them, us, what we decide about, are being followed. That's all it does. So it doesn't give them control.
It does if they're involved, and I've seen what happens with the other pieces of it. So I just wanted to.
We'll have to disagree about that because they don't have control. We have the control. We, the writers of the conservation restriction.
So thank you, Emily, for saying that. And I hope that you can understand that we, the donors, are hoping that you leave it with the Conservation Commission and not a state entity to have any influence. So I just wanted to drop in, give the letter from my dad, let you know my personal thoughts as being a family member. I know you have other folks to speak at your meeting, but it certainly will give a precedent to the flavor of our community and those that choose to participate in generous donations to really just see how this response is given. So thank you for letting me speak, Madam Chair, and I'll be kind of listening, as you proceed with your meeting.
Okay, I see that Anne has her hand up. So Anne Gagnon, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to find out, was this land donated or was it required as part of a cluster development? I'm a little confused. I thought Mr. Craven had developed the residential cul-de-sac that abuts this property. Was that part of this donation?
Are you asking me that, Anne?
Yeah, well, whoever might know.
My understanding was that it was part of an open space preservation development, that it was the open space required to be set aside as part of that process.
Okay, because that's what I thought. So I was a little confused when Kim mentioned that her dad had donated the property. So it was required as part of that subdivision development, correct?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That is my understanding.
Okay, that was my understanding too. I just wanted to confirm that. And I didn't want to say anything to Todd earlier because it sounded like he was in the middle of a water break crisis. So he probably wasn't of a frame of mind to discuss the details. But if Fish and Wildlife were to hold the CR, we could make arrangements so that a well may be able to be put in, or maybe we would exclude that portion and have someone else hold the CR on that portion. So there are different ways around that. In terms of enforcing, illegal activity on the property, we don't own the property. We have no rights over the property right now, so we really can't be doing anything in terms of enforcement. But if we were to hold the CR, then obviously we would. I just have one other thing to add. I did reach out to the water superintendent today, but I didn't realize that their office closes early. I think that they leave at 1 now. So I did leave a message and I sent an email asking about the water master plan or management plan, and this site in particular. But obviously I haven't heard back yet.
Okay. All right. I don't think writing a CR precludes the town from also monitoring the land. I don't think it's the town still owns the land with a conservation restriction. The flavor of the Conservation Commission goes in and out, depending on who's on the board.
Or the day of the week.
Pardon me?
Or the day of the week.
Or the day of the week. So a CR doesn't, at least in my experience, I have never seen where people have you don't give up the land. You still are the owner. You're the holder of the fee. You are using the property. You are there. It's a layer of protection so that, and it is in perpetuity. So it means going forward, there is an entity, and you want to have an entity that's going to be around for a while, that's going to follow with the land, to be there and making sure that the interests of the owner are being honored. So I don't think there's any intent, at least on the part of the town, to stop it to be being used for youth activities. I think we're very much in favor of having that continue. And we're very much in favor in the modifications that are being made. I mean, there's nothing negative about that. And I think, you know, as far as the water goes, you want to be able to keep that as a well site. So you can just either keep that out of the conservation restriction or write the restriction so that it is an allowed use for the future. So from my perspective, and we are the CR committee, if we want to change that, I would want something from the Conservation Commission to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, I think I agree with Emily. I don't know how everybody else feels about how the intent of this committee is to write a CR. If there is some reason not to, then different story, but needs to come in a different path.
So you would go back to the select board and request that the Conservation Commission makes a plan, reevaluates, makes a plan.
And I would want to have talks with, so that's a whole different story from this.
Oh, sure.
This is the way, and there was a lot of thought that went into it, 2 or 3 years ago as to what was going to happen.
It's taken years of planning and trying to just figure out the path to take, because Emily's put in all this work and you have too with the stuff that you've done
Not
down
the
there.
past couple of years. When I thought the CR was going to roll along, I didn't realize it wasn't.
It's a lot of work, and I know Colby's here as our agent. We can add that to our next agenda.
But
discuss if that's how you see fit.
Well, if it was a viable alternative in November 21, it would seem to still be a viable alternative now.
Here's the thing. When you are on a board, the board changes over and over. Yeah, you can do that. Come up here if you're going to talk again, though, James, okay, so that you can be on the recording and people know who you are. The thing is, if there is something signed by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Selectmen changes, the things that were signed by the prior board are still in place. They don't change because the board changes. And so when TASA came forward with we need to have this signed so we can move forward with our permits, it was like, great, where is the CR? That was part of everything. And it got dropped for whatever reason. But the decision, at least in my mind, is still the decision. And all of these things, even, Kim coming forward as the person who developed the property, and this was the set aside open space, and there were specific things that needed to be done on that site. And they have been. So, and they will continue to be. So I guess I see CRs in a different light from, I always go back to the West property. There's a CR on the Christmas tree farm on Bootel Road. New England Forestry Foundation and now North County Land Trust are co-holders of that. It hasn't changed the use of the property, but it did get monitored regularly. And there was an encroachment situation a few years back that was handled through the CR holder. So it wasn't a negative. I don't see CRs as a negative. I see them as a way to ensure that the property stays in perpetuity as you want it to be. So it's just a different, and it was a viable alternative. It was just that the decision was made. So how many times do you remake the decision is what it comes down to. I mean, it was well thought out. It was more than one meeting. It was talks, with like what we're doing now, to figure out how to go forward. And I don't know. So, any questions about what happened historically? Because that's the agenda item. Selena, were you able to find the things that you asked about?
I went back and I found a bunch of stuff. So I was able to watch all the videos of the meetings that were sent to us. And then I found a couple others that were further discussions. So it was
Were they in Conservation Commission? Or?
I found one that was a Board of Selectmen. I didn't find the Conservation Commission one, but that's okay.
Okay. All right.
So I went through and I watched all of them and took notes. And I think all of the history makes sense now.
Good. All right, well, that's good. So how do we proceed? I mean, we are the CR committee. So the question is, should we, there's work that's going to be done on the part of Fish and Wildlife. We do not have today, and Anne can maybe talk to this more, the sample CR that we had hoped to have today, but she did look into the hunting thing. Did you all get the hunting map?
No.
Okay, that's something that I can share.
Yeah.
Because
that was definitely a concern.
Yeah, so there's...
That part.
Yeah, come on up here while I hunt for the map.
In the past, conservation has received inquiries about hunting on town property, and
it's usually allowed.
It is. So hunting is technically allowed.
Currently allowed at the soccer
now,
fields.
Does that mean anyone does it? I don't know. But it's the sound of the season for
Yeah,
because you can hear it all over town. So
right, and I am not at all opposed to hunting. I'm wondering about including something about needing to be such a distance from the soccer fields specifically.
Oh yeah,
because right now you have to be so far from a dwelling or a road, right? So like, because we do play in the fall, which is the biggest hunting season in the area, I think, here too. So yeah, the hunting maps would be good because I wasn't sure what was already not like where the boundary line is for the existing hunting.
Are you going to share that map, Veronica?
I'm looking for it right now. Do you know what date you sent that to me on?
I don't. It was a while ago. Sorry.
Yeah,
and I'm not at the office or at home. I'm sitting on someone's front step, so I can't look it up and provide it. But I think if memory serves me correct, and we can confirm this. You got it?
I do have it. Yeah, let me get it. I'm going to need to be able to screen share from my computer, Hartley. So if you can give me permission to do that, that would be great. And Anne, if you have anything else that you want to talk about while I get this rolling?
Yeah, I believe that it will show that the soccer fields are already within the hunting safety zone because of the distance, the setback requirements for setbacks from roads and houses. And so as you can see, that hashed area is the hunting setback.
Okay, what is
So-
the purple that's not hashed?
The pink that's not hatched is the property that we're discussing.
Okay, well, that includes part of the soccer field.
Yeah, that could very well be, but we could certainly put up signs that would preclude hunting from that whole area. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why you haven't had any issues, even though the town allows hunting on the property, in theory, because
In theory.
hunters understand that there's with the setbacks, there's really no place to hunt right there unless you're right along the river.
Right. And is the river the white line there, Anne?
It's
Yes.
blue. and
Yes,
white.
Blue and white,
Yep.
Yeah,
that dashed line.
yeah.
Hmm.
So it's in this area.
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And up to here or so.
Yep. And that area just to the south of the property that we're talking about, that is not colored pink, that is also town-owned land, but not part of the Craven development.
Okay,
So that's another parcel that the town had taken for non-payment of taxes, I assume.
okay,
It's almost entirely wet and next to the river.
right.
But as you can see, a lot of that portion is also not allowed to be hunted due to the setbacks.
So it's really just this area in here.
Right, exactly. Yep.
And that area, that's sort of the light pinky purple.
Up in here.
No, the
Yeah.
other, that, right there,
here.
that is soccer field right there.
Right.
And-
in here. Yeah.
Right,
No,
and
that's
as
the
I
field
said,
one.
we could, as I said, we could put up signs that say no hunting in that area.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many years the soccer fields have been there. Have you ever had any issues with hunters?
To my knowledge, no. I've been on the board for 3 years now. But yeah, the soccer fields have been there for 25 years.
Yeah, I've been around the area for, I don't know, 20 years or something, and I've never heard of any issues out there.
Well, if in fact CR gets put on there, I think we would want to post for sure.
Yeah.
I think that would be one of
Yeah.
the not allowed uses, maybe for the entire property. The CR would, well, we haven't made any decisions, but it would more be on the area out here in the soccer field area.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, I see, Anne, do you have anything else that you want to say before? I see Colby has his hand up, so I want to give him an opportunity to talk.
Sure. No, I'm done for now. Like I said, I think we need to get some more information from the water superintendent to see, I couldn't find the water management plan on the website.
The water master plan.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
I haven't seen there was an older version, but I thought they had just recently updated it, and I haven't seen that. So.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Are you going to stay on? You're going to stay on, right?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
stay on.
We have more questions.
Yeah,
for you.
I want to hear what Colby has to say.
Okay, Colby, you're on.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you. So Well, I don't think the CR is a negative thing. I think it does come with some positive aspects, but I think there's a more pragmatic approach here that we're not considering, and that is to deed it to the Conservation Commission, put in the care of Conservation Commission. And the reason why I bring that up is that they come with built-in, protections through Article 97, which is in the Mass General Laws. And I think what that does everything that you are looking to do with this property, and that is to keep it in conservation and protected as open space, and that's built in to the Article 97. I just don't know, quite understand why that's not considered.
Does Article
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, Emily, go ahead.
Would going riding bikes on the hills also be covered in Article 97? Preventing that? Because we can tailor make the CR. Can we tailor make the turning it over to the Conservation Commission to make sure that we are able to prevent activities there that would degrade the habitat for the listed species? That's my question.
And I guess my question kind of builds off that. If it's Article 97, does it allow for the use of the land as a recreational facility? These are questions. I don't know. I know that it protects the land, not even necessarily in perpetuity, unless it needs an act of the legislature to take it out of Article 97. But I guess it's more of can you specify allowable uses versus uses that are not allowed in specific areas of the property? I don't know. This is something we can check on.
Colby, do you know?
Should I take down the share, or should I keep it up?
I think
I would have to research that, but I don't see why there is any reason why we couldn't have stronger restrictions or stronger protection in certain areas, with it being in the care of the Conservation Commission. And I'm not quite sure how the state or any state entity can actually protect more than right here in town with the Conservation Commission. When there are violations on any of these properties, wildlife management, as well as Conservation commissions, the first call is to the police. That they're the ones responding to violations. It's not generally the environmental police coming out, at least not right away. That's a little bit of my rebuttal to that.
Okay, I just want to reiterate that the purpose of this committee was to put a conservation restriction on. My understanding was that this had already been discussed, in depth for, several months way back when. So here we are. So that's all I'm going to say on that. But we could look at Article 97 and see. I think I would want to go back to NHESP and have more discussions if the scope is changing. But Anne, go ahead. Your hand is up still.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say to to Colby's comments that did consider having the land, having at least a portion of the land transferred to the Conservation Commission. And as Ronnie has mentioned on a number of occasions, it was already voted by the commission that they didn't want to take control. Second, I was just at a Conservation Commission meeting a few weeks ago, and Mr. Gates had said more than once in the taped recording that they were considering swapping some Article 97 lands.
We asked the question.
Right. So my point being that having a CR on the land to a different entity from the town would be very protective, particularly if the commission members changed and didn't feel as strongly as you do about protecting Article 97 land.
And I understand that the changeover in personnel in the Conservation Commission, you're not wrong there. There's considerable change, but the objectives of it do not change, and it is not easy to move or swap land. You know, there's I believe it's a 2/3 vote of not only the commission members, but there's needed 2/3 vote of town, and then you need 2/3 vote from the legislature, the state legislature, to do so. So
yes,
it's not an easy thing.
Yeah, I'm well aware, but it does happen on occasion. And yeah, I just put that out there.
I understand. I
guess as far as proceeding goes here, I think what I'd like to do is go forward proceeding with the conservation restriction, and with the understanding that if something changes, we could wind up, no, I guess it depends on if the committee's willing to put in the time on a conservation restriction, with the understanding that if there is a groundswell to change paths, that we disband. But I would like to go forward. I think that going forward and looking at the property and understanding what allowable uses are for all of the entities, how to keep the property, because whether it's Article 97 or not, how do you, with Article 97, put a well on the property, for instance? I don't know exactly how that works. So maybe Colby, you can find that out. How does that work? I don't know. So, and it was an option. There were two options brought forward to us by NHDSP, one or the other. So,
I agree that we should probably start considering allowed activities and not allowed activities, and I think people will feel less threatened if we see that it's really a very, very reasonable request to protect the habitat. And I think that it makes sense for us to just look at those things. And I think then people will feel a little less threatened. I just feel a lot of nervousness about losing control over the land by the town, and I don't think it involves that at all, especially if we just look at what's allowed and what's not allowed. What we decide would be allowed and not allowed. I think it would help to calm people down. I don't know.
That sounds reasonable. I know with the West property, there was initially a CR put on. The terms of the CR changed, and maybe 10 years later, 15 years later, and it was amended. The family came forward and wanted a change, and so they're the property owners. The CR holder doesn't make changes to the allowable uses and the things that are not allowed on the property. That isn't the CR holder who does that. It's the owner of the property, and the town retains ownership. So Selena, I know you were going to say something, and James has come to the table, so I assume he has something else to say. So
I remembered, I did have one question from all of the history, which was, there was a discussion about whether or not part of the land was deeded to the water department.
Did you find that? I looked all over for that. It was in a select board meeting.
It was January 18th. And there was a discussion going on, and somebody had the deed, but that didn't get shown on the screen because.
And so did he. And we had a discussion with town council after that. And it is definitely the town that owns it.
Okay.
I looked all over for that and I could not. There's just so much. Okay, so it was January 18th, 2023.
2022.
2022.
Yep.
I keep a notebook, and I have 4 of them. And so I was looking through that because I knew there were notes and I just couldn't. So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing was I found that there is a conservation restriction for public drinking water supply purposes. And I actually just sent you the link because my computer is running out of battery and I didn't want to lose it.
Okay.
But it is specifically for water supply purposes, and it says that it is the CR can be held by a municipality or water district through its board of water commissioners.
Okay, we can look at that. So maybe it's
so that might be part of what we want to do,
and makes it not get lost by the water department.
Right.
Kind of town retains the ownership, they hold the CR for the water supply.
And I do believe the fields are considered to be part of the water supply because they're part of the watershed for the water supply.
Oh, really?
I'm not 100% sure. I was trying to find that before I came and I didn't, but somebody at that meeting had mentioned that at least one of the fields was in the watershed area.
So that would be field 2.
That would be field 2. So the question then would be, if they held the CR, could they hold it for the entire property? And we'd have the allowable uses of the recreation from the existing field 2 back towards the road.
And would they also monitor the habitat area?
And also allow for maintenance of the habitat area.
Right.
That's something
that's another thing.
That is one of my bigger concerns is allowing for maintenance of habitat area. And Emily has done a lot of work the last 2 years.
Right.
With it. And I don't want to see it go backwards. We did a bunch of stuff down there in 2020 and it needs to be done again. And I've had conversations with National Heritage about doing it, or quote unquote doing the heavy lifting, so it's easier for the volunteers to manage, because the property did go many years without being maintained, and it really, the habitat did deteriorate, which then the animals or reptiles moved further out for sun.
Right. So are we good with taking Emily's suggestion of looking at I mean, there's a lot to look into. Allowable uses and restricted uses, if that's the right word. And looking at the CR for water, that sort of thing. And meeting again to discuss that. Maybe look at what the CR from Fish and Game would look like. And I'll get the deed information on the water. So, James.
I just want to make sure I know it's okay to speak.
Go ahead. I'm just.
I will say that during our last meeting in March, and you did say that you've never seen property be swapped out of Chapter 97. Now, again, it was just a simple question that we asked.
You're muted, Ann. You're muted, Ann.
But you had also on recording said it's never been done. You know, we have no interest in doing that with any property in town, but we have to ask those questions because you just have to. It's in my makeup to just ask. But I believe, wasn't North County Land Trust an option to hold the CR on this property?
I talked to them, and I was hopeful, but there was not a lot of interest. So.
And my only other thought for CR holders, because this is on the Squanicook River, would Nashua River watershed.
That's who I had worked with, was Al Futterman and Anna at North County. That was those were the names that I had given to Eric, but then Al retired. And I'm not real certain who the person there is now to talk to, their land person. Anne, are you talking? I can't tell if she's trying to get in here now. All right, well, but those were my initial go-tos for the CR holder. The last time I talked to Anna was fairly recently, and it was a no. So,
the water.
I think it's more a matter of the monitoring that when you hold there has to be a baseline development report.
Yep.
So what's the baseline? And then you have to annually monitor. And so you need to have an entity that feels that they have the resources to allow that to happen. And because of the number of possibilities on this property, that makes it a challenge for an organization that isn't a huge organization. All right, so any other comments before I go on to the place where we say discuss tentative meeting dates and agendas for those dates?
Well, I'm just curious how people feel, regardless of why the Craven family donated it.
It wasn't a donation, it was
a requirement. Okay, but somehow, in my mind, regardless of how it was done, we still somehow, do we use that as an excuse for disregarding their feelings about it? She was pretty adamant that she didn't want this to have a conservation restriction. And not that I
read that differently. I heard her say that she wanted the ownership to stay with the town. Did I hear that wrong?
The ownership and the management of the property to stay with the town.
Okay. Well,
and I think the sticking point for her was the management under the CR would fall to
some other entity out of the,
It's not really managing the property though. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll just briefly tell you, now, obviously, we're not thinking about ever selling this property, but I've moved from Chelmsford. And about 10 or 15 years ago, there was a situation where a town family had been there historically for a long time, had donated a pond and a grassy area very close to the center of town. And I don't know what entity in the town controlled or owned the property, but clearly it was written, the deed or whatever was written in a way where the town, if they wanted to, could sell it, which they did. And so now there is a medical office building there. And the family was irate. They donated it in good faith and the town sold it.
I think I would be irate too.
Yeah. So not that you're planning on selling it, but somehow in my mind, it's important to respect the people who donated it and not just see that it was required as a way out of disregarding their emotions.
But
So can I
yeah,
speak?
go ahead.
First of all, we need to clarify that it wasn't a donation. It was part of a real estate deal. And so that's number one. Number two, the ownership would not leave the town. The ownership stays with the town. I actually wrote a letter in support of expanding the soccer fields. Me, the person who goes there to protect the wildlife, because I know how important it is to have recreation. But also, this is an amazing, this is one of the most valuable sites for a particular species, plural, in the state. And that comes from natural heritage. And that needs to be respected too, because the wildlife can't just get on a bus and move somewhere else. They're stuck here. And if we don't protect the habitat, they will die off. So I really feel that we need to meet people's needs and the environment's needs. And we can do both. You know, the soccer fields are expanding. They're expanding the entrance. They're expanding the parking. And it's great because we need that type of thing. But we also need to protect what has become smaller and smaller and smaller habitat for these species.
Sure, I get that.
So, okay.
I'm
So
wondering-
we need to respect one another, not the former owners of the large area that became a development. And then this land was set aside so that more houses could be put on the other portion of their former land.
Okay, so it brings me to, what if there is, in her mind, and I don't know her, Ms. Craven, sort of a hybrid. She talked about she wishes that it would be under the control of the Conservation Commission. She spoke pretty strongly about not having the restriction held by Fish and Wildlife, even though it's hard to find another trust that might hold a restriction. Is it worth? Because it's my understanding they've donated. Okay, this one might be part of a land deal, so he could build the houses, but he's donated a lot of land in the town. Is that true?
I think it's the ball field.
But that's irrelevant, sir. Mike, that's irrelevant.
I understand that, but if we could do a hybrid that she would agree with, such as that the town doesn't own it anymore, that if she could see the benefits of the conservation restriction, perhaps not by Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, whatever, another entity that she felt they would feel comfortable with, and the rest of the property is deeded to the Conservation Commission. Is it worth asking asking her if that was in her mind a viable option?
So I think we are at the point of all of this discussion happened back in 21 and 22. And the Board of Selectmen voted based on the recommendations of Conservation Commission to go ahead with the CR option.
I just described that.
So I think for our purposes, we need to move ahead with what we want in the CR. Like Emily was saying, the things we want, the things we need to restrict. And as far as who holds the CR, I think we can explore options.
Right.
I think that sounds reasonable.
But I think the part that was different, and I don't disagree that we should go ahead and you know, decide on what should be allowed and not allowed and what but if she could be assured somehow that the Conservation Commission would have the property, would be deeded, the property would be deeded to the commission with the CR.
So I think that would be for the Conservation Commission to discuss at a meeting. And if that is a path they want to follow, they need to bring it to the select board. But we as the CR committee don't really have any power over that.
Right. The question is it worth, asking to make them, you know, I don't want to make them, you know, feel better, but more comfortable with it.
But I think that's a question for the Conservation Commission or for the select board, but not for us.
Okay.
Is that yes, the reason this was put together was to write a CR. And I think there's value in going forward. And figuring out what are the allowable uses on that property. How do you block it off for water and do it so that it's there when and if it's ever needed? How do you, I think it's worth going forward with that, with the intent of doing a CR, whether it's the Fish and Game CR or the CR template that I had originally sent out to you guys, the NHESP one. They have a different template than what a person putting a CR on their property would have. It's a different template. The process is different for those two things. Whether it's an EOEA or whatever they're talking about now, that's the NHESP, or the Fish and Game, that's a simpler process for a CR. But both of them are deeded and in perpetuity. So, I don't think, but we can talk about it when we're doing our allowable uses, not allowed uses. I don't think there isn't anything that precludes the owner of the property from doing whatever they're doing, as long as it's not a disallowed use, which is what they chose. I mean, Mr. West still planted his trees. He still, you know, maintained them. He still sold them. He still, you know, changed the fields if he wanted to, because he's the one that said, this is what's allowed, this is what isn't allowed. It wasn't the CR holder that does that. The CR holder works with the landowner and does the monitoring to make sure that it stays as is. You know, I wouldn't expect that this property would ever change hands from the town. But if you're a private owner that has a CR on your property, that can change hands. And you want to make sure that for him, it was wanting the farm to remain a farm and wooded, you know, forever. That was the intent, was to keep it as is in perpetuity, no matter who the owner of the property was. And so it's the outside entity that does the monitoring of that.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we as a committee table this discussion and work on coming up with a list of allowed and not allowed uses.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, Selena Thomas, second.
Right.
Getting the hang of this.
Emily Fine did the motion. So, Selena Thomas did the second. Any further discussion? All right, then roll call vote from committee members. Starting at the table. So Michael.
Mike Potts said yes.
Selena Thomas, yes.
Veronica Kell, yes.
Emily Fine, yes.
Okay, with that, the motion passes. So, should we pick dates and then come back the next time with what we think are possible allowed uses? And Anne, if you could provide us with the template for Fish and Game, so we know what we're working towards. And we'll proceed that way until otherwise noted. Yes. And I will look for the deed, and I think I gave you guys the deeds. That first thing that Sabrina sent out, there were three. The property has 3 deeds because it's in 3 parcels.
Right.
And so if you look at that, that's where you'll see it. I can't remember which one is the water piece, but you can skim it and find it pretty quickly, I think. Because I did pull those out. So, all right, date for our next meeting.
The only other thing I would like at the next meeting is also to bring the NHESP CR version. I don't know if you have the current version or
I'll
not.
check and make sure it's the current version. I sent the one that I had from 2023.
Right.
They were revamping it, and so it took a while. That was one of the things that held it up. NHESP was changing the template for their conservation restrictions, and so I had to wait till they had it available. And by then, my term was ended, and I wasn't rerunning. So, okay, I will get the current version. So I have 2 things. Any additional stuff on the water rights, I guess, with the deed. Anything I can find on that, and the current version of the NHESP. Yeah. That sounds good. Anything else?
Is there a template for the water trustees to hold that? That you brought up?
If there is.
It's a fact sheet, and I emailed it to you.
Okay, so I'll get it to Sabrina to send out to the committee. I
Yeah.
can't send it out to everybody because of open meeting law. Sorry, or I would. None of us can. That's just, so I'll get it to Sabrina. So yes, this is the link from, or sheet from Selena.
Yeah, it's a CR for public drinking water supply purposes fact sheet. There are some other links in there, so one of those may be the
form.
Yeah, or where you need to go for it, or
that's
yeah.
Okay, all right. So can we look at dates?
Dates.
Are Thursday nights generally good for people? Thursday at 7?
Yes.
When is school vacation week? Do we want to
The
avoid school
24th
vacation?
is school vacation week.
Okay. Do we want to go a week, 2 weeks? I wouldn't want to go 3 weeks, but I don't know how people schedule so much. I'm going to throw out the 24th at 7 p.m. Does that work for people?
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
It is school vacation week, but I don't have a problem with it. My kids are older. They won't miss me for a couple hours.
For a couple hours. All right. And Emily, what about you? Does that work for you?
That works for me.
Okay. All right. So our next meeting is Thursday, April 24th at 7 p.m. And we'll do it the same way. There will be a Zoom link and also here. So Sabrina reserved the room for us for like every Thursday for 2 months or something. So we are good on that. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
So Selena Thomas, so moved.
Second, Mike Potts.
Thank you. All All right, all those in favor of adjourning at 8:23?
Selena Thomas, yes.
Mike Potts said yes.
Veronica Kell, yes.
Emily Fine, yes.
All right, thank you very much, everybody, and see you in 2 weeks.